Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Good afternoon. I'm Representative Matt Norris. I represent the Blaine and Lexington area in the Minnesota House of Representatives, and I'm proud to be the legislator with the most manufactured housing of any House district in the state of Minnesota. We've got a tremendous coalition joining us here today because there's about 180,000 Minnesotans across the state living in the state's around 800 manufactured home park communities. And about 90% of those residents who live in a manufactured housing community, they rent the land that sits underneath the house that they own. And so this halfway home ownership structure creates an especially risky situation and an unstable environment for low-income homeowners across the state. Because even though we commonly refer to these as mobile homes, they're not particularly mobile. First of all, it costs about $15,000 to move one of these homes, and that's even if it's physically able to be moved. After they've been in one place for a couple of years, they kind of settle into the ground and they're more or less stuck in the place where they've been placed. So that creates some challenges when you're trying to relocate one of these homes. And over the last decade, as a result, manufactured home communities have become prime real estate for private equity investors whose primary business model is to buy a park and then seek to increase its value by raising the rent, adding fees, and cutting back on maintenance and absolving themselves of a lot of the responsibilities of community owners. Then they often sell the park within a few years for a profit for themselves and their investors. In fact, in 2024, just last year, about 90% of the parks that were sold and purchased in Minnesota were purchased by out-of-state real estate investment trusts and private equity firms. As a result of this private equity ownership, lot rents have increased by about 10% or more annually, leaving many residents who are on fixed incomes struggling to decide between paying that rent or trying to pay for food and gas and medicines. And even the mom and pop owners of parks have started increasing rent at similar rates just to keep up. Since being elected in 2022, I've heard from my residents how out of control this is getting, not just in Blaine and Lexington, but in parks across the state. The severity of this issue hit home for me when residents of Blaine International Village invited me to their park for a town hall. There were over 100 people crammed into the room and then over 100 more standing outside in the 90-degree heat waiting to get in. But the challenges aren't just in my district. I have here a stack of articles and emails that I've seen over just the past couple of months that highlight the pervasiveness of this issue. A December 6th article, Hermantown, Minnesota cracks down on trailer park owner over deplorable conditions. A December 9th issue, mobile home park residents seek rent relief from Lake Elmo. An email I got on January 25th, urgent issue impacting Hispanic community at Cimarron Park, Lake Elmo, Minnesota. A February 12th article, Minnesota Housing Agency sues to keep mobile home park open in Marshall. A February 16th email, Brandondale just turned off the water to the entire park overnight in sub-zero temps. March 10th article, Lakeville steps in over concerns of severe lack of investment at expanding mobile home park. And then just last week, Hermantown trailer park owner begins to close in lieu of fixing life-threatening problems. Manufactured housing in Minnesota is in crisis, and that's how we ended up with the bill we're introducing today. The Manufactured Home Park Resident Bill of Rights does three big things. First, it tackles the issue of excessive rent increases by finally defining reasonable rent as no more than 3% increase annually. It creates a true opportunity for residents to purchase their park if it were to go up for sale and create a resident-owned cooperative. And it creates more enforcement of laws already in place and clarifies the community owner's responsibility for things like tree care and utility maintenance. Too often these days, working class people feel like the game is rigged against them, that no one is listening to their concerns. Well, we are. And thanks to the people power standing here today, we're standing alongside our constituents to push back against big corporations engaging in negligent or predatory behavior. And now I'd like to turn it over to some residents to share more.
Thanks, Matt. My name is Tammy Fry. I'm a 13-year homeowner at Blaine International Village. I purchased my home in 2012 with the hope of having an affordable place to live as I prepared for my retirement. But in 2020, our community was purchased by Haven Park Communities, a private equity firm in Utah. That's when things started to change. Our lot rents increased and have continued to increase anywhere from $50 to $65 annually. We are also seeing cutbacks on services and amenities, as Matt mentioned. For new residents moving in, on top of paying a mortgage, their lot rent is $800 to $1,000 a month. Mandatory lawn care service is also required for new residents at our park at a rate of $200 per month, which is included in their rent. Many people living in our community, as Matt mentioned, are on fixed incomes. A small group of residents and I have been door knocking since early December at all 7 parks in Blaine, talking to residents about this critical issue, and the common concern of residents is that they're worried their next rent increase will either leave them without food, medication, or possible homelessness. I know firsthand how damaging private equity is. I worked for a Big 4 accounting firm for many years who had private equity clients. Their business model is simple: buy up manufactured home parks, senior care facilities, specialty clinics, even corporations. Squeeze them for everything due to their vulnerability, maximize their profit, and then move on, leaving us suffering to survive. I ask that you please support Bill HF 2381 in the House and SF 2691 in the Senate. We need a bill that will put residents first and give us some protection under law. Thank you.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Jersey Coloto, and I'm from northern Minnesota, and I've lived in Viking Terrace, one of the 2 parks there, for 15 years. My family moved there because it was one of the few places in towns that we could afford and have enough space to grow. People who live in manufactured home parks are young people like me who spent their whole lives there, young couples, working families, single parents, veterans, people with disabilities, folks on fixed incomes, immigrants building new lives, and seniors looking for an affordable place to retire. People assume greater Minnesota is more affordable, but the truth is we face the same struggles as folks in Blaine and everywhere else where manufactured homes communities exist. In 2022, our park was bought by Lakeshore Management. Since then, our rent has gone up $180. This year, they told us there'd be no rent increase, then turned around and started charging us separately for utilities like water and trash. All these increases, and yet we get little in return. These corporations treat us like cash machines, changing the costs and rules to squeeze more and more money out of us and push a certain type of people out. My neighbors and I live under constant threat from management. They hit us with lease violations for agreements we never even signed. They nitpick, looking for reasons to force us out of our own homes. Just last week, we got another notice, either spend hundreds, if not thousands, on changes to our homes, or they'll start the eviction process. What they forget is that we're a community. We've been there for decades. We don't just need housing, we deserve dignity and respect. If it were affordable, I'd stay there for the rest of my life, but now I don't know what I'll be able to do. But I do know this: we have to stand up to fight for our homes, and this bill helps us do that. Thank you. George Nicoloto. Yeah.
My name is Natividad Seefeld. I am a resident at Park Plaza Cooperative, and I am also the president of Park Plaza Cooperative since 2010. Back in 2010, we became oh my gosh, my heart is breaking right now for the folks behind me, so it's really hard to concentrate, and I'm so sorry. Back in 2010, we received a letter from our owner stating that our community was going to be for sale, and he would like to offer it up to us, long before an opportunity to purchase bill was even in play. With that came North Country Cooperative Foundation, Rock USA out of New Hampshire, and Rock Capital, also out of New Hampshire, who said, "We are here to help you become a co-op." We gathered together in a small area at the local library. We decided, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? And we voted yes. And we became a co-op on 2011, February 15. With that, we also realized, oh my goodness, we now have to take care of everything. So we decided in 2016 we would figure out a way to do all the infrastructure of $1 million With that, we changed all of our streets, our water, our sewers, opened up new manholes to access the sewers, added fire hydrants that were never there, added extra lighting, and there we were. With still another $1 million worth of infrastructure to go, because that's going to tell you how bad this place was since the early 1960s. We've also been able to hold our rent twice in the time that we've been a co-op, at 3 years each time, not raising the rent those 3 years each time, which has been a really big a deal for us, because at that time, families that were moving in were extremely low income. We're considered a low income community. And we have a lot of families that are on fixed income, disability, Social Security, single moms, single dads, all trying to live and make it affordable for where they live. The one thing for us is we were able to marry our land to our homes, take control of our rent, take control of our finances, and be able to live securely and healthily. We are a great example of how it's possible to invest in our community and maintain an affordable place for the people to live. In 2016, we built the storm shelter above ground, the first of its kind. It can withstand up to an F5. Also got special permission to turn it into a community center as well, where we have been able to invite lots of senators, lots of legislators, lots of state representatives to come and see what it means to be a co-op and have control of who you are and not have to worry about closing, being sold, or being displaced. Lots of these firms sell their places behind closed doors in the middle of the night, and the residents wake up to a note on their door that they've been sold and the rent is going to increase. It continues to increase every single year with no cap. No amount of money can even be affordable anymore at this time, whether it's $25 or it's $100. It's just awful to listen to, and I am trying really hard not to cry right now. Thanks to the people power, we are standing alongside our constituents to push back against big corporations engaging in negligent and predatory behavior, to keep all of the folks that are behind me and even more, of 180,000 plus, living in manufactured housing, fearful for their lives, wondering where they're going to go, and when's the next rent increase? When's the next time they're going to tell you you have to move because you did not follow the rules and regulations set forth by these big firms? I am begging everyone that is available to please, please back the bills that are put forth and help the residents stay in the most possible way you can, because this is the only last affordable housing available, and it's true affordable housing that's getting to be no longer affordable. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your support and your understanding for all of us who are living in manufactured housing. And please know, we're safe, and I'm here to support in any way I possibly can.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Liz Bolden. I serve in the Minnesota Senate. I represent District 25, which is Rochester, Orinoco, and surrounding areas. And I am really proud to be carrying this bill in the Senate. These stories that we heard today are similar to stories that I have heard in my district in Rochester, where residents are struggling to get by at the hands of greedy corporations. They're similar to residents in manufactured homes in every corner of our state. Because of the work some of these residents and others have done, we have petitioned signatures from thousands of residents living in manufactured home parks across the state, signaling their support for this legislation and who are feeling desperate for relief. This bill puts the needs of residents first. Residents who live, work, go to school, contribute to our communities, our neighbors, friends, family members who want to stay in our communities. We are also in the midst of a nationwide housing crisis that we are not immune from in Minnesota, and our colleagues on both sides of the aisle understand that. Manufactured home communities are the largest source of unsubsidized affordable housing in our state. One of the ways to tackle our housing crisis is by preserving the affordable housing we already have while creating opportunities for even more. We cannot take away the last bastion of affordable housing for so many people. With that, I will pass it back to Rep. Norris, and we can open it up for questions.
Yeah, any questions?
Representative Norris, I'm just curious, absent this bill, is there any kind of regulation right now that's going on in the state that would help people? I mean, if someone is pestered until the point where they're forced out of their house, or, there's other issues where they feel they're being treated unfairly, what regulations or what laws exist to protect these people?
So there are a number of laws that are already on the books. One of the challenges that we've run into in groups like the Housing Justice Center and even the Attorney General's office have run into is that it's difficult to enforce those provisions. They don't have a lot of teeth. So one of the things that this bill does is give some teeth to the enforcement, allowing for equitable relief, injunctions, even the awarding of attorney's fees. Another example of where we've got existing laws, but they're not working right now for the residents is actually on the rent piece. So right now, under state statute, parks are limited to quote unquote reasonable rent increases each year. But that's never defined, and because of where it's placed in state statute, courts have ruled that it's essentially toothless. So again, what this bill is trying to do is step in and fill some of those gaps and make sure that we're tightening up the existing laws that are on the books and provide some additional clarity to make sure that these laws can be enforced.
So then the Attorney General's office would be responsible for enforcing, I know there's a mechanism in the bill where the rate could be raised higher than 3% if it's for health and safety of residents. Would it be the Attorney General who determines that?
Could be. You could also have a private action by a resident to help enforce it. I know the Housing Justice Center works frequently with residents on those sorts of matters. So it's not just one entity that could enforce it.
I was also curious where these numbers came from. I don't know if that's a question for you, Representative Norris, or.
Those are, I think our friends from Isaiah help provide those. I don't know if you've got citations you can provide or anything. Yeah.
And then any plans to get Republican sponsors on this bill?
Yeah, we're working on it. I've had some good conversations with some of my Republican colleagues on the Housing Committee. There's some parts of the bill right now that are giving them some heartburn, but I think ultimately it's about who do you want to stand with? Do you want to stand with your residents or stand with private equity firms? And we're choosing to stand with the residents.
That's all I got.
Any questions? All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.